In this quick video, we're going to focus on the banking system. We're just going to really dial in on the fractional reserve system and leave more of the banking system for later. What we're going to focus on then is commercial banks and how the reserves work to create more money. What we need to understand is that our money doesn't sit in a cave like at Gringotts. It's in a system. Banks exist to make money, so they use our money to make more money, and so they're constantly turning money over. Again, remember that when we put money in the bank, the currency that we put in the bank goes into the vault and no longer counts as money. It gets converted to the dots. The dots are part of the reserve system. And what makes this whole system work is that we have what we call the required reserve ratio. And so banks have to keep so much money on hand, and then they're allowed to go ahead and loan out the rest. And so that's what we're talking about in this little bit. What I need you to understand is that banks accept deposits and then make loans. Again, we'll talk about this in another video, but they're going to offer interest rates for people to put money in the savings, and then they're going to offer other interest rates to try to make money on the loans, and then they make money on the difference between the two interest rates. Again, that's in another video. In this video, we're just going to focus on what are the reserves. So first, let's go down here just so we can cover it. The reserves are currency in the bank's vaults plus the balance on its reserve account at the Federal Reserve Bank. We're not going to introduce that and confuse things right now. Just understand it's the reserves at the bank. The required reserve ratio is the minimum percentage of deposits that the Fed requires banks and other institutions to hold in reserve. So that's the key. You put money in the bank. Some of it will go into the required reserves, which the bank must keep on hand. The rest they can actually loan out. That goes into the reserves. Okay. And to make things easier, we'll just divide it up what we call those. We call the required reserves versus the excess reserves. So very simple. If we're looking at $100 deposited and we're looking at a required reserve ratio of 10%, that means the bank must keep 10% of the money on hand before they make loans. So if we were to put $100 in the bank, the required reserves would be 10% of that, or $10, and now the excess reserve would be $90. So now they can loan out the $90. So in this sequence, what happens is they keep 10 on hand, they loan 90 out to somebody else. That person borrows the $90 and puts it in a different bank. And this is for simplification. They could put it back in the same bank, but we're just going to add in extra banks to make it simplified for you. So that bank must put $9 of the 90 into the required reserves because it's 10%. Now they have $81 to loan out. They loan out the 81, it goes in and it repeats. 10%, they keep $8.10. They can loan out $72.90. And you can see in the video, it just goes on and on and on. Eventually what happens is they keep making these loans until we get down to only all $100 have been spent and they're sitting in everybody's required reserves. After that, you can see that the money that's been loaned out, there's zero left, so there's no more loans to make. What happens is this is like magic. What we do is we turn essentially $100 into thousands and thousands of dollars by loaning it over and over again. And this is what makes our system operate and function at a high peak, because we don't have to keep all 100 in the first bank. We get to give it out to other people. And so we're literally taking just pennies on the dollar and turning it into multiplication of money that creates the wealth inside of our system. All right, we'll catch you later.